This is Duke University.
We're going to go ahead and get started. And as they come in, I'll just let the students in. But we have Stacy Peterson here today. She is with the Duke Alumni and Engagement Office, and she's going to be providing a presentation on building your network. So I'm going to kind of pass it off to Stacy.
Great, thanks, Alicia. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's make sure this is all working. Can you all see that okay? Okay, great. So again, I'm Stacy Peterson. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Senior Director for Campus Engagement at Duke's Alumni Engagement and Development Office. Really excited to meet you today, Ethan, and to talk through how to build alumni connections and how to use those for networking and finding career path, and also just any other type of advice that you might want to get from alumni along the way and people who have been there before you. Ethan, since you're the only one here right now, I'd just love to hear what year you are and what kind of is interesting to you right now in terms of career paths.
But yeah, I'm freshman. Technically probably gonna study ECE in Pratt. So I am engineer.
So the way that I'm gonna do this presentation is by using a tool called Mentimeter, which is a polling tool. So do you have your phone on you? And if so, could you go ahead and enter in that QR code? And let me know when you're ready.
Sounds good. Yeah, let me join real fast.
Sure.
Do you also work with the Pratt alumni engagement, or are you guys separate offices?
We're separate offices, but we're very closely tied together. We meet with them regularly, and they're really great colleagues and partners of ours.
I see.
A lot of people refer to us as Big Duke, which is just like all students, all alumni, but definitely partner really closely with the schools.
I see. Okay. I think I've joined.
Okay. So I just have a quick question for you. If you could enter in, if you ever considered reaching out to Duke alumni. Attempted before, and I know I know what who wrote it, so that's fine. So that's great that you've attempted before. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why you might want to connect with them. And I would love to hear a little bit from you about your attempts, and we'll get into that a little bit in a little bit, so you can maybe think through how you might respond to that. But from our perspective, we encourage people to connect with alumni because people equals knowledge, and connections are access for a lot of different things. And like a good example that I have for that is we have alums who have, or students who have told us, oh, I reached out to such and such alum when I was applying for a role. And they completely broke down their HR process, what they were looking for in the resumes, what the keywords slash code words meant, how long it would take to get reviewed, all this kind of stuff that, the student who relayed this to me said it felt like secret information because it wasn't online, but it's not secret. It's just somebody internal needs to be able to talk to you and know you. And so they are really, really useful allies in terms of giving you information, giving you access to things, telling you about opportunities that might not be posted or that you might not have seen. So there's a wide variety of career-related reasons that you might connect with them. And some of the common topics that we go through, obviously you can talk with them about careers, but we also want to highlight that, major selection, academic success, which could be like, your time management tools. Maybe you're interested in grad school someday. What does that look like? How do you prepare for that? And then experience with specific organizations, be those companies or even like volunteer groups, and then cities. We have really had seen a lot of success with people reaching out saying like, hey, I'm really interested in San Francisco or Houston, and they can give you the lowdown on what it was like to move there and how they found housing or a roommate or something of that nature. So we always like to point out that while they are incredibly helpful for career information, it's also really they can be great resources on a wide variety of like life skills and help. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you get connected to alumni, where you find them, and how you find the right people. And so I'm going to go back to Mentimeter, to the QR code, and ask, if you were to look for and connect with alum, do you have an idea, a vague idea, or you don't know what to do? A vague idea. That's usually where most people sit, for sure. And so there are definite ways to do it. And I just want to make sure that you have the opportunity to learn about the most efficient tools that we have and the best ways to reach out to people who you would get the most benefit from connecting with. And then one of the last questions I have on this tool is, do you know about the Alumni Network and Ask a Blue Devil? Because those are the two tools we're going to go through today. Oh, you know both. That's very exciting. So a lot of people have heard of the Alumni Directory, but not Ask a Blue Devil. So we'll go through those and talk a little bit about maybe experiences using them. And I see another student has joined. Kanthi, welcome. So let's go ahead and move forward. So really, we're just going to talk about how to find your people, how to use our tools to do that. And of course, I said Duke Alumni Network and Ask a Blue Devil are the primary tools that we recommend. And for the Duke Alumni Network, I kind of like to put it into words or phrases so you can understand that there are two different tools and how they are different. So the Duke Alumni Network is profiles, filters and keywords, and messaging. It is like LinkedIn. It is, but just for Duke people. So it doesn't have some of the fancy tools that LinkedIn does, and we don't have people like actually posting individual things on there, but we do have their profiles there. So if you are a student or an alum of Duke, you have a profile, and you can activate that if you haven't done that before as a student, and I'll show you how. But it's a really nice way to find people who just belong to the Duke community, and get contact information for them. And we do recommend that you use it in conjunction with LinkedIn, and I'll talk a little bit about how you will do that. So in order to access the directory, you go to alumni.duke.edu. And then I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots so you can see what the website looks like and how to navigate it. Our website just changed like 2 weeks ago, so I just updated these screenshots. So hopefully, if you've used it before, but it's been a while, then it will look a little different right now. So the first screenshot I have here is when you get to alumni.duke.edu, you want to scroll down to the Welcome, Let's Connect section and click on Find and Connect with Alumni. If you have used the network before, the next step is a little bit different, but if you've never used it before, you will get a pop-up that looks like this that says, do you want to approve your access to the network? And you actually have to do that in Duke Hub. It takes just about a minute and it'll pop up for you. But I just want to make people aware that, you do have to log in with your Duke credentials to get into the network. And this is what happens the first time you do that. So when you go to the network, it will take you to, after you've logged in, it will take you to browsing people. The little bit of background information is the first person that pops up is the last person to have logged into the network. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're more or less or that people who are lower on the list aren't as active or aren't going to respond to you, but it's just a little bit of knowledge that, if somebody's at the top, they've probably been thinking about reaching out to Duke folks. I want to also say that unlike LinkedIn, where you need to like go in all the time to update your materials, we encourage alumni to keep their email addresses up to date and their current job titles, but at the same time, if they've been in the same role or the same company for a while, they're not always asked to like keep coming back in because there isn't really a way for them to post or anything like that. So sometimes it'll, someone will be way down at the bottom of that list, but that doesn't mean that their information is not up to date. So for the filter that's on the left side of the screen, I just wanted to show you that that's how you would search for people based on professional at Duke and location. And when you open those up, you can see for professional, you can search by industry. You would just start typing in like finance or computer engineering or something of that nature, software engineering or something of that nature. You can also look for employer and job title. When you do a search in this system, it does do and searches. So it's not an either or. So if you were to search software engineering and Google, then you would only get people who have both of those. And then you can also search by class year. You can search by degree. You can search by majors or schools. Region and affinity groups is something that I'll talk about briefly, which can be a really good tool for you. And then location. So say I'm looking for, the software engineer at Google who lives in Austin, Texas. That's real specific, but you can narrow down to that. And then I'll talk about region and affinity groups as I show you an example profile next. So this is an alum that actually lives here in the Triangle, Rinbin Dong, wonderful volunteer, somebody that we are well connected with, and from Pratt. And so when you log in and you see Rinbin, you'll see his degrees. You'll see things like residence halls and student awards. And sometimes you'll see their spouse or their family or something of that nature. So that's just kind of what you would see as a student logging into that. And you can see in the top, well, not the top right, kind of in the middle right where it says contact information. You can click on that and it will well, not contact above right by his bio headshot. That's where you can actually reach out to him, and that doesn't message him through the network, it messages his email. We do have it set up right now where you don't actually see their email addresses the first time you communicate with them, because we have had some instances where students were like emailing people over and over and over again, and you just want to prevent that. But once he responds to your email, he'll respond via his Gmail or whatever account we have for him. And then you'll have that address. But the way it's set up is that if you actually use that contact button 3 times, it will block you out because that prevents people from emailing the same person over and over and over again. So that's what that first page looks like. And then the professional section is whatever they've chosen to tell us about their career. They can, copy and paste off of LinkedIn or put in resume or something of that nature. Some people don't have very much here, and that's it's not too much of a big deal. As I said, like sometimes I want to find that person in LinkedIn and see what their most recent job was, because maybe it's not up to date here. But the key thing to know that's really valuable about the directory is that you can access their email. A lot of people in industry do not check their LinkedIn messages all the time, or they get a lot of LinkedIn messages from random people and they don't know who they are. And so it's very helpful to be able to directly email them. And I think that's one of the things that the directory is really useful for, finding Duke people and then being able to directly email them. And then the My Duke section is where you're going to see volunteering they've done for Duke, and also regional and affinity groups. So one of the cool things about regional and affinity groups, and you can look them up on the network, there's lots and lots of them, is you can find out what people, what alumni identify with. Do they identify with Duke Asian alumni? Do they identify with Duke First? You can see the ones here that Runbin is a part of. And you can also go to those groups separately to find people who are in those groups and message them that way rather than just searching through industry or location. So if you wanted to say, well, I really want to connect with someone who's in the international group because like I'm looking for help with visa situations or something like that, you can go to those groups through the network and see who all is in there. And then you can message them that way. And then you can also learn a little bit about Runbin. What does he care about? What was he aligned with? And that's kind of really helpful information that's Duke specific and isn't going to be like necessarily on LinkedIn. And also the residence halls and the clubs and the awards. Like, if you lived in the same residence hall or if you were in the same club or something of that nature, it gives you a little bit of personal Duke touch when you're reaching out to these folks. So that is my very quick overview about the Duke Alumni Network. I'm going to go into Ask a Blue Devil next, but I would love to know if you have any questions before I move on and/or any experiences that you've had with using the directory. So I'll just take a moment for that.
Yeah, well, at least for me, I've actually had quite some trouble accessing it recently, and I got it fixed, but it just would never load the alumni Duke, and I guess the IT dude said it was something wrong with my cache or something, so I had to clear all my memory. But I haven't really used the alumni thing to contact anyone. I've tried to sort a little, but it's a little daunting because there's like 200,000 people. So it's a little daunting to look for someone and then maybe contact them. But yeah, I didn't know there was, I guess I didn't click into them really and do as much research, but I didn't know there was so much that they could put in, like even the residence halls and stuff. And that's I guess a good way to, you know, have something in common right away.
Absolutely. Or just know a little something about them and Duke. The other thing that they sometimes put like contact me about, like, and there's all sorts of categories like career. Some of them say contact me about career advice. And so if they say that, like, that's a really good opportunity to just say like, oh, okay, this person's really open. But yes, so with the new website that we turned over a couple weeks ago, we have had some issues and we have been telling people over and over again to clear their cache because the links and everything have just gotten a little bit messed up and the search optimization in Google has gotten messed up. So if you cleared your cache and been able to access it, that's great. And I appreciate that feedback. If you have trouble going forward, please reach out to me, like email me, and I will help you because there are definitely some bugs with the new website. And it is daunting for sure. There's a lot of people in here. Writing a cold email is kind of hard. And to be honest, sometimes the response rate isn't what you would hope for because either the email address is like they're not checking that email that much, or they're getting a lot of email, or they're very busy and they don't know you. So a lot of Duke alumni are really excited to help students, but sometimes the cold email is a little bit harder. And so that's why I really love Ask a Blue Devil and want to lead into that a little bit. So let me move on to Ask a Blue Devil. I want to show you the difference between Ask a Blue Devil and the network, or the directory. Is Ask a Blue Devil is you're asking questions, you have topics that you want to discuss, and there's a matching process. So this is what the main page for Ask a Blue Devil looks like. It is very accessible through alumni.duke.edu. I think, yeah. If you go to askabluedevil.duke.edu, you can also get it that way. So you just click on Ask a Question Now, and then you get a little form. And the form that you're filling out will create an email. So you give them your name, your email address. It does ask for your net ID because we want to make sure that this is Duke people using the system, and your class year. And then it will ask you, what do you need help with? And it'll say, like, give it a short headline, introduce yourself, what you want help with, and close nicely. There is a video about how to craft a good question, which, hopefully you feel confident doing so after this, but if not, feel free to check that out. And then there's a little checkbox. I commit to thanking each alum who responds to my question. We always ask that you do that just because we have a lot of really excited Duke alum who want to help answer these questions. And sometimes students will get multiple responses. And this isn't a situation where you just pick your favorite and respond to that one. Like, we do ask that you at least respond to every alum who's responded to you because they're curious, what did you think of what they had to say? And if you don't want to talk to them further, I'll talk a little bit about how you can do that. So, but we do ask you to at least thank them for the response. So here is someone this is Jen Wong, who works on my team. She's a recent grad from the class of 23, and she was interested in higher ed administration. Spoiler, she ended up working for us because she got connected to alumni working in our office. So that's a very interesting way where it led to a job. And I have all sorts of stories about Ask a Blue Devil leading into lots of interesting things. But I want to point out that while Jen's question here is very specific, it's not, it doesn't have to be like a burning question of like, oh, how do I do this or how do I do that? It's more like, I'm interested in these two things. Which degree would be better? What type of opportunity should I focus on? What is your career path? Things that are just very based on curiosity. And we find that those questions work really, really well. We also find with the closing that if you're like, oh, I'm in Durham, I could meet in person or I could meet over Zoom, giving them a little direction of what you're hoping for is really, really helpful. The thing to know about Ask a Blue Devil is it really focuses on keywords. It is an AI tool. It uses keywords to match you with alumni. And the nice thing, particularly on the alumni side, but also on the student side, is what it will do is it will send your question to up to 35 different alumni who match some part of like one of your keywords. And it will send them an email and it will ask them, do you have time and is this relevant? And so they get to back out without, you saying, I don't have time or it's not relevant to me. But the ones who say yes, they will be connected to you right through email. And so when you're talking about the directory being daunting, I think what's really nice about Ask a Blue Devil is the people who answer your question have already like, yes, this is relevant. Yes, I have time. And it's really nice for them because if they don't, then, they can say so. Or if it's not relevant, they can also give us more information on what is relevant to them. And then our system gets smarter. So it's a win-win if we hear back from them. Like I said, it'll send it out to about 35 alumni. We have actually had to lower the number of people that we send it to because we've had students get like lots of responses. I'm not saying that that's normal, like that you will always get lots of responses. Sometimes it's just one or two, but it is possible to get several responses. And we're working with the company that services Ask a Blue Devil for us, and they joke that Duke alumni, like Duke in general, is the most responsive alumni base of all of the ones that they work with. So that's it's kind of nice to hear. And we just like to point out that they are really excited to talk to you. And you'll get people that you wouldn't necessarily be able to find by searching the directory or searching LinkedIn. People who this question is relevant for that you wouldn't even maybe understand why. So I'm going to move on really quickly. I just want to give you a little bit of background around that. The next thing that I like to point out is this. I circled this little magic wand. Whenever there's a magic wand in Ask a Blue Devil, it means that it will have AI help you craft your question. But the warning I have for you is that it will erase what you've written and start suggesting new things. So I recommend you use a Word doc, Google Doc, whatever, and write what you want to write in there in that system so you don't lose what you have written in case you don't want the suggestions that the system is giving you. But again, in terms of it being like, we're hoping to make this more user-friendly, less daunting. What do I say? What will work? And the nice thing about it, as compared to using ChatGPT or Copilot or another system like that, is the suggestions this system gives you is actually based on the questions that do the best for this particular system. The ones that get the best responses. And so the tendency for a lot of people is like, oh, well, I'll go into another AI platform and have it help me craft a response. But they are actually using data of like, what have the Duke alumni been most responsive to? And that's how they're making suggestions for you. So, and then I just want you to see at the end what it ends up looking like to the alum. It's like, it looks just like an email. And so the next step is once you send your Ask a Blue Devil question, you will hopefully get responses. And this is what it looks like when you get one. Oh, you've got help, woohoo. So here's a person saying that they want to meet, they want to talk with Jen, and that's a really great response. Sometimes people actually will write out long answers rather than suggest to meet. And that doesn't mean you can't meet with them, but I just wanted to give a heads up on that. The other thing to know is that it will take a week or two to probably get a response. And you can continue getting responses on your question for a little while. We keep them open for around 90 days because if you think about the way you use your own email, sometimes you say, oh, I'd like to do that, but I don't have time for that today. And we find that a lot of alumni do that. And so, and then they come back to it and they're like, oh, it's not live anymore. I really wanted to answer that. So we've actually extended the time. So I just had a student tell me that they submitted a question a couple weeks ago. They got one response right away. And then like another the next week. And then yesterday, they're like, oh, I got a fourth. So they won't all come in at the same time, and they can still happen later on. If you are satisfied with responses you've already received, you can contact us and say, can you close my question? And so I'll let you know how to do that too. And then this is just a reminder that you can then, use the network and use LinkedIn to look up this person, like find what you can, find the information that you can on them, so that you have more information when you're responding. And then this is what the back end looks like. And I find that there's a lot of people who are really interested in like, okay, I submit a question. What does it actually pick up? What kind of keywords am I thinking about when I do this? So here's another question that I think Jen had. Yeah. She was like, oh, I'm giving all my friends really good relationship advice. Maybe I should be a marriage counselor. And I really encourage these kind of curiosity questions, right? Like, what is it like to be a marriage counselor? What is it like to do this? What is it like to do that? Alumni love answering those kinds of questions, and you will learn so much from the experience of asking them. And then she was also saying, okay, maybe I want to be an international high school teacher. I like education. I want to live abroad. So these tags are the keywords that the system picked up. It does pick up synonyms, so you don't have to stress too much about saying the same thing in different ways. And particularly for the second one, I think it's interesting to note that she mentioned the United World College and and ESL, and it picked up acronyms. So I don't recommend you always put acronyms in yours because some acronyms mean many different things to different people, but just know that the system is looking for acronyms, looking for synonyms, and that's kind of how it works. So when we go into like a comparison of the two, just wanted to reinforce that the alumni network is like a reservoir of people, Duke exclusive LinkedIn, whereas Ask the Blue Devils, the networking blind box. You don't know who will respond to it, but that's kind of fun and interesting, I think. And they're going to be relevant to what your question is. The alumni network, you're researching. Ask a Blue Devil, you're asking a question. Alumni network, you're messaging directly. Ask a Blue Devil, it's sending to different people. And you can bump a previous message in the alumni network up to 3 times, as I said. With Ask a Blue Devil, you can also like, oh, I didn't get a good response or I didn't get many responses. You can just go ahead and ask again with a different phrase or a different keyword. There is no harm in doing that. You can submit multiple questions if you want to. And you know, you can use trial and error to see what you get with different questions. So one more hypothetical scenario I want to go through, and then I'm going to take a minute for questions, is this is I think this was another Jen interest. She was like, how do you start a museum? I'm really interested in museums. And she said, I know I could look up like who works at the Smithsonian or who works at whatever, but I'm just kind of curious about museums in general. And the coolest person responded who had worked for McKinsey for like 20 years and then started their own consulting firm specifically on launching and running museums. And who knew that that person even existed? How would you even find them? And that person, I think, talked her out of it in maybe a half hour, which is also a really good thing, right? Like, it gave her real information, real insights, and she was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds horrible." And think of all the time you could spend studying something, internships, things of that nature, just to find out you didn't like it. Whereas this person was able to kind of give her some real information from a bird's eye view of her question. And like, I would never in a million years know how to look that person up on LinkedIn or even know that that type of job existed. So that's just like one other example. I've got Ask a Blue Devil stories for days, but I think it's a really fun tool. So I do want to take a minute to see if Ethan, if you have any questions. Or if you've used Ask a Blue Devil and you want to tell us how it went.
No, actually, this kind of motivated me to try it out. I've always had some non-career questions as well, you know. I think everyone has diverse interests, and sometimes I think after I came to college and then everyone's looking for internships and stuff that you kind of niche down a little too heavily, and I don't have time to invest in some other things that I'm interested in. I do a lot of things in like animal service, so I do a lot of stuff with like working with dogs and cats. So I'd love to, you know, ask questions to people who are maybe affiliated with Duke and done stuff like that. Because otherwise, right now, I'm just talking with people right now that are around the local Durham area. Those are my only connections. But I'd love to, you know, maybe people all over, you know, the US and maybe even the world and find out more
Yeah.
about that. And obviously, related to my major as well. I would like to have a summer job. So maybe I would ask that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll go through some kind of like green flags and red flags for how to ask good questions and get not just good questions. There are lots of questions are good, but how to get the results that you're looking for. So when you're writing the message, that's what we're going to talk about really briefly, is you want to say who you are. Um, some commonalities are what you want to discuss, and then some potential action items. Those are the main things you want to put in your question. We find that if you give a little bit of personal touch to it, like I grew up here or I'm interested in this, alumni are more responsive to that, right? If it's not too like it's not that you shouldn't be professional, but you should be willing to open up a little bit so that people are like, oh, this is a really cute, cool human that I want to connect with. And so it doesn't have to say much, but just, what I'm interested in, where you grew up, or anything that's relevant to your question. And then I noticed, why are you reaching out to this person. And this is when you're, you know, when you're actually talking to an individual rather than ask a Blue Devil. I noticed that you're working on X. I think you would have really good perspective to share, you know, make them feel like they're not just one of hundreds of people that you're reaching out to, even if that's the case. And then we find that, you know, there's a lot of, like, anybody in a busy career will tell you that the most painful emails are going back and forth with when are you available. So we like to suggest giving them some blocks of time when you might be available. Don't get too specific, like I'm available Tuesday at 2:45, but give them some blocks of time. I actually did have one very recent piece of feedback that I was given that you would think would be helpful, but is not. And I just want to share it. Is we had one student who was reaching out to alumni and she's decided to offer her own Calendly link. And a exec was like super offended. And so she was like, oh, if this person wants my advice, like they should find time that works for me. I don't need to make time to, or I don't need to schedule the appointment myself. So I just want to give that feedback that it's a fine line there between like when you are available and like having them book an appointment. So I think that just saying like, oh, Tuesday and Wednesday mornings are good for me or something like that would be a good way to respond. And then here are some green flags and red flags, particularly on Ask a Blue Devil. A manageable starting point that invites conversation is a good thing. Like, you know, I'm interested in this major, I'm interested in your career path, or I'm interested in your city, or I see that we were both in club badminton. Like, you know, something that like you share connection with and that you just want to discuss. And an openness to learn, right? You want to be curious, you want to be excited, you want to hear from their experience. Do not say, hey, I'd love a job, hey, I'd love an internship, or hey, will you review my resume? You will be able to get to that point with these folks, but there's a lot of people who get put off by that. And those are the questions that are the most unanswered on Ask a Blue Devil. Those are the ones that usually do not work out. So starting with, I'm curious about, I want to learn more about, is a better starting point than I have a month to find an internship and I need help. A lot of alumni also are not in a place to hire. That doesn't mean they can't help you, but sometimes if they think that's all you're looking for and they are like, well, I don't have a position, then they don't feel like they want to respond to that. A good set of keywords is important, but not too many that conflict with each other because again, this is AI. So if you're interested in this and this and this and this, and they're all different things that can confuse the system. Try, if you have questions about multiple different areas, do multiple different questions. And then again, a little personal touch, share your story, but don't make it 2 pages long or longer. We have seen that as well, and that can be intimidating for folks. We've also had the hard and specific questions. We had one student say like, what's the stock market gonna do next year? You know, things that just nobody feels like they can answer. So those are just some examples of things that haven't worked out as well. And then how to get connected and how to follow up with them. Again, as I said with the Alumni Network, follow up 5 to 7 days out, 3 times total, rephrase with Ask a Blue Devil. And then with both of them, you don't have to have a specific question, and you can exchange your emails or even your phone number. Some alumni are just like, text me. You can decide whether you'd like to do that or not, but at the same time, it does come up. And then just always respond and say thank you with whatever responses that you get. If you do find that you don't really want to continue talking with someone or you don't want to meet with someone, you can say all sorts of things like, hey, I'm really busy with my like course load right now, but I'm really excited to hear about your experience. And would it be okay if I got back to you later at a more relevant time? Or just saying, you know, there's lots of different ways to kind of politely say no. but just make sure that you do respond. Any other questions before I go on to the last part of my presentation?
You mentioned putting like a personal touch in the Ask a Blue Devil part. What do you think is the best way to do that? Because it's like, I guess for that one, you don't really know who you're talking to. So you just put things that maybe like you've done on Duke campus and hopefully, spread a net wide enough so that maybe, reach some person. But I feel like would you be relatively general with the things you do that way that more people can maybe, relate to that?
Yeah, I mean, I find that it's just usually like where you're from or what year you are, or even like what dorm you live in, or just a little bit of like, hey, I'm not a bot, I'm a human. And it doesn't have to be something that, is certainly not something controversial. But I find that just like maybe a class you took that was interesting to you or something like that. Something that's like relatable to most Duke people, in terms of like, oh, I'm in this class, or I had this experience that sparked an interest in mine. Something that just shows your curiosity and just again humanizes you a little bit. So I think what you were saying of terms of saying like, just I guess it's just kind of like giving them just a little bit about who you are as a person. They don't have to, you won't necessarily be matched on on that part of the question, but I find that it works better. And it certainly works better with a cold email to do that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then, so we can just breeze through this. Do you feel like it sounds like you feel like a little bit more like, oh, I know how to use these tools a little bit better. And then, how likely are you to reach out to alumni? Very likely. That's great. So I just want to talk for the last few minutes about, once you actually are talking to them and what that looks like. So the now what? I've got somebody, they want to have a Zoom, they want to meet for coffee. What do I do? So again, respond with times that you are available, but show flexibility. And I recommend getting off of email. Trying to have Zoom or a call or a coffee is way better because the next stage of the conversation is really based on whether or not you can build rapport with that person. Building rapport is a super key aspect to getting them to helping you later on. And you want to be able to connect with them, and that can be hard to do over email. If that's all they'll do, that's all they'll do. But usually if you say, I'd love to connect with you over Zoom or phone or something like that, most people will try to do that for you. And then you need to do your research and prepare some questions and check your technology. If you are doing Zoom, as you are doing today, Ethan, keep your camera on and make sure that everything's working when you're talking to them. And when it comes to questions, I like to talk about a favorite acronym of mine, TIARA. There is who I consider a career wizard out there. His name is Steve Dalton, and he used to work for Duke's Fuqua School of Business. He's got a couple of books out. One is called The 2-Hour Job Search, and that's where he introduces this acronym. And these are the different types of questions you should ask in what we would call an informational interview. I mentioned Steve because he's got a lot of great resources. He's got a lot of really, really wonderful material on YouTube. And so if you really, and he was an engineer, I believe, and he was like, I really don't like networking. And he made it work really well for him and kind of built out a science of how it works best. You also can follow him on LinkedIn, and he responds to people's questions. And like, it's really interesting to watch people say like, oh, I did this, what do you recommend? And seeing how he responds, because this process always throws curveballs. And so I give you some examples of tiara questions. So a trend is that's a pretty simple one. Like, what are some trends in your industry right now? What are you seeing happening? How is the current economy affecting this industry? Things of that nature. Insights, why did this type of work interest you and how did you get started? What part of this job do you personally find most satisfying or most challenging? Those are really good questions. What do you like and not like about working in this industry? Advice, how did you get your job? What jobs and experiences led you to your present position? I like this question. Do you have any special words of warning or encouragement as a result of your experience? Resources. What podcast should I be listening to? What newsletters should I follow? What other fields or jobs would you suggest based on what you've heard from me today in our conversation? And then assignments like, what's your favorite project? Why? What was the most laborious project? Why? And what kinds of experiences did you have that would encourage anybody pursuing a career in this field? You can look up Tiara, Google it, and you'll come up with lists of questions. The key thing that I like to point out about these questions is they are not yes/no questions. Those are not helpful. And they are not questions that you can easily Google the answer to. And that is something that alumni are really, really, really helpful with, is like giving you the non-Googleable information, or even confirming or not the things that they did see on things that you did see on Google. So those are some good questions to ask. Make sure that you have a lot of them in front of you so that when you're having the conversation, you're prepared for that. But you want to build rapport. People like to talk about themselves. Be curious about them. Ask them for their advice. Ask them about their favorite or least favorite thing. You are interviewing them. They are not interviewing you. I know it can seem pretty intimidating sometimes to have these conversations, but just remember that if you're asking them all about their likes, their dislikes, their path, their this, their that, most people are going to respond pretty well to that. And then I always say that you should ask this question at the end. Based on what you know about me, who else should I talk to? And then if they give you names, will you connect me? Because you're looking for warm intros to other folks. And that's a really great way to get those. And it's totally okay to directly ask, but a lot of times people don't think to like, oh, I'll connect you. So make sure you ask. And then you should also ask them for, generally, what advice do you have based on what you know about me, based on what you know about my experience. And that's the section that you should follow up on. So you should, of course, send a thank you note 24 hours or less after you meet with somebody. But I also recommend the 2 to 4 week follow-up, which is usually best framed as, I took your advice, or I'm taking your advice. Here's what happened, or here's what is happening. If you want to connect with someone further and you want them to help you and they want them to think you're, this go-getter Duke student that they really want to like support or take under their wing, you should show, the best way to do that is by showing them that you listened to them and that you acted on what they suggested. And it doesn't have to be big. It could just be like, I checked out this podcast and that was an interesting episode, wasn't it? Or it could be bigger than that. I connected with somebody you suggested, or, did really well in a class and based on this research recommendation that you had. But it's really, really helpful. And that is why alumni generally do these types of interviews with students, is because they want to help you. And if you tell them that they helped you, that is going to like reaffirm for them, yes, this is why I am doing this, and this is somebody that I want to support. I usually recommend a super quick spreadsheet of like the name of person you talk to, when you talk to them, where they work, and then a notes section that's just advice they gave you. Because if you're doing this well, you're going to connect with a lot of people and you'll forget who told you what. So that little advice column is key, and it's like the simplest of spreadsheets. But and also like, did they refer you to someone else and who? So that's kind of like the info interview in a nutshell. Stay in touch with people. If you don't have any updates on advice, you can always share, like, I just finished a big project and here's how it went. Or, you know, people do these because they want to connect with Duke students. They want to hear what you guys are doing. They want to support you. And so give them that opportunity. And just remember that it's not a burden for them. You're not wasting their time. If they're not very responsive, then, you can move on. But I always give them the opportunity to hear a little bit more and to connect a little deeper with you. So just ending, last two slides, that networking doesn't have to be a written message, right? It can be panels. It can be, we have Karsh conversations, which are dinners with alumni. There's a lot of alumni that come to campus over a lot of different spaces. So it's a really great opportunity there's a lot of great opportunities to do that. Doesn't have to be related to academics or professional interests. And it doesn't always teach you what you expected to learn. And I always encourage people not to make assumptions based on someone's job title or based on what they studied as to what they can teach you and how they can help you. So, you know me now. I can meet with you. I can help you find connections. I can give you advice and support. The QR code goes to alumni.duke.edu in the student connections section. I also support student groups who want to do events or activities with alumni. So if you're part of a student group, we do have funding available. We can get you Duke swag to thank your alumni guests with. So reach out to me about connecting with alumni in any form or fashion. And that's my email address right there. And that's all I have for today. Do you have any other questions, Ethan? Thanks for sticking in.
Well, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much for this entire talk. I mean, I have one quick question that's related to the presentation before. I know it's getting late for you guys, but when does it become too much where you have to balance between, like, what's the good balance, or how can you find a balance between, spending time networking and spending time actually, building your own skills and building taking your academics and doing stuff like that? Because it's like, I feel like there's a fine line between people, maybe like some of my friends in finance or economics, where it seems like all day long, all they're doing is just, I don't know, maybe it's not very technical, but they're always just talking to people, versus for engineering, I feel like a lot of it is a lot more technical, especially in, if like electrical or computer engineering. So how would you recommend like finding a good balance between these two?
I think especially as you're in your first year, I would spend a little bit more time on the skill building and the your courses and the things that you're trying to do at Duke for sure. I definitely think it's valuable to reach out to alumni, but you don't have the pressure on you that like a junior who needs an internship or a senior who's getting ready to graduate does. But I do find that the earlier you start reaching out to people, the more you can build a relationship. And those relationships mean that when you do need that internship and you do need that job, you can be more direct. You can ask people you've talked to a few times if they'll look over your resume or if they have any suggestions. The problem that we see is people who do wait. It's like, oh, I need an internship yesterday. This process doesn't work as well in that scenario because you need to have time to get to know people. You need to be flexible with their schedules. You need to explore, right? And it's also really, these processes can be very helpful in terms of finding out that maybe something you were interested in isn't what you want, right? And they can give you a lot of really great advice and warnings and encouragement and things of that nature if you're like, maybe that's not actually what I want to do. So doing it a little earlier is good, but in your first year, maybe try it once or twice, see how it goes. But I would suggest not spending too much time doing it day in, day out when you're not facing some of those deadlines immediately. I don't know. Alicia and Shaman probably have some good thoughts on this too, so I don't want to. I want to make sure that we ask them as well. Do you guys have thoughts about that?
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about that's kind of in relation to what you were saying, Stacey, is that if you also have like on your log that you're keeping up with the networks that you're talking to, like if you have dates up there to say like, hey, this was the last time I spoke with them, and if that way it kind of helps you remember. Like I always tell students, when you're in this process of networking, you don't think of it if I have to speak to them every week or maybe even month. You may not be every month, but it may be where you build in this maybe it's a quarterly type of outreach that you do with that person, so that way that you can have like consistent with rapport consistency with rapport building. So even if you just kind of remember those dates, like I spoke with John in January, I'm gonna plan to reach out to him again maybe in May or something like that, so that way you kind of hold yourself accountable as well as you're in the process of you reaching out.
They also can be really helpful with school projects. Right? Like maybe you get into a school project and you're like, but if you already know somebody, then you can say, hey, maybe so and so could give me advice about this, or maybe you're in Code or Data Plus or something like that, and you want to get another perspective. Like it's just really helpful to have these people kind of available to you that you've already connected with. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a constant thing or an everyday thing. And if it were, it would overwhelm them too. So don't stress about that. I know that, yeah, finance and econ, there's a lot of like, oh, I need to do this every day, every day, every day. And I would argue they don't really need to do it every day either. But it is more common in that space for sure.
Yeah, and the last thing that I would add is, of course, I agree with both what Stacy and Shaman mentioned, but again, just to reiterate, as a first year, it should not be that pressing right now. And then I will say there are some opportunities that you can network and it not really feel like networking. And some of those opportunities might be like, I'm gonna plug the Career Center real quick. But we have events and we invite alums, we invite employers to come and present and chat with students. And I mean, honestly, you're networking in those instances. It might not feel like it because you're having just like general conversation, but you're networking. So just kind of keep that in mind too. It doesn't have to always look like official networking or whatever you envision networking to be. It could be those instances, or even you can network with your peers. If there are some sophomores, juniors, or seniors that are doing some of the things you might be interested in, you can reach out to them and see if you can chat with them, maybe over lunch or grab some coffee or some tea or somewhere on campus and chat and see what their experiences were like too. So just kind of keep that in mind as well.
Thank you for joining us, and reach out with anything that comes up along the way, okay?